The laughter reached Earth 12 minutes before it crossed the first light years of interstellar space. Not audible, of course, but in the form of a broadcast, a transmission that spanned frequencies humans hadn't even named yet. Dr. Elias Kade stood in the observation chamber of the United Earth Defense Network, his hands folded behind his back, eyes fixed on the holographic interface. Around him, dozens of junior analysts pressed their fingers against consoles, nerves taut. None spoke. Not yet. The translation software struggled, pausing as if uncertain how to render alien mockery into human comprehension. Then the words appeared, simple, pointed, cruel. Observe, a species that argues over borders while dreaming of stars. How quaint. The accompanying laughter pulsed across every orbital array, every listening station, every orbital silo network connected to the mainframe. It was sharp, theatrical, unyielding, an audible sneer converted into electromagnetic waves. Elias didn't flinch. "You heard that?" whispered Lieutenant Maricone, leaning into his shoulder. Her voice trembled. "They're mocking us, in front of everyone." Elias only nodded. "Yes. And we're listening. That's what matters." The room fell silent again. Outside the reinforced glass, Earth spun in muted blues and greens, ignorant of the humiliation unfolding light years away. The broadcast looped, repeating itself 3 times before the aliens paused to offer commentary. "Send a representative. Let us see the little minds behind the fragile blue world." Some analysts exhaled sharply, almost collectively. Earth's political leaders had already debated this for hours, some calling for an immediate reply, others for surrender. Now, watching the messages unfold in real time, every suggestion of retaliation seemed reckless. Kade turned toward the nearest console, tapping commands with deliberate precision. "We do not respond," he said. The words were calm, measured. "They want a reaction. They will get none. We observe. We record. We learn." Lieutenant Cone frowned. "We're letting them humiliate us, then? In front of the whole quadrant?" Elias shook his head. "No. We're giving ourselves time. Time they don't have." The room buzzed with unease. Junior scientists glanced at each other, unsure if silence was strength or cowardice. Outside the chamber, the orbital array caught stray transmissions from Concordat satellites, every piece of data carefully analyzed, every nuance logged. Each laugh, each taunt, was now a resource. Every insult a clue. High above Earth, the alien broadcast originated from a cylindrical satellite, sleek and ominous, rotating slowly as if savoring the spectacle. The high speaker Vailthrix's voice carried the performance of a galactic stage actor, all arrogance, all control. Watch the tiny beings squabble over technology that barely scratches the surface of their ambition. They will send emissaries. They will beg for recognition. And we shall delight in their manners. An analyst's hand trembled as she adjusted the broadcast filter. "Dr. Kade, do you think they understand how fragile their systems look when they speak like that?" Elias paused. His eyes narrowed. "Fragile," he said softly, almost to himself. "Maybe. But fragile is not weak if you know how to wait." He walked along the perimeter of the chamber, past consoles glowing with streams of alien telemetry, decoding sequences, energy readings, communication anomalies. Every laugh, every mock, every carefully calculated insult from Vailthrix was catalogued, cross-referenced, and stored. Humanity was under scrutiny, but that scrutiny, he realized, was also a mirror. Minutes stretched into hours. The laughter paused as the aliens announced an invitation, an explicit demand for Earth to respond publicly. Broadcast channels lit up across the United Nations, politicians squabbling in emergency sessions. Some called for compliance, some for defiance. Elias listened silently, eyes on the projection of orbital maps. "They want us to play their game," he said. "We won't. Not today. Not ever until we choose the board." "Do you think they'll understand that?" Cone asked. "They'll think we're afraid," he replied. "Let them. Fear is a tool only if they know it exists." Right now, they're blind. Outside, Earth's atmosphere reflected the distant light of the sun, tranquil, indifferent. Inside the chamber, the human mind was racing, cataloging vulnerabilities, predicting patterns. The Concordat's arrogance was not a weapon, it was a blueprint. Every station, every satellite, every energy surge had a rhythm. Humanity's task was simple: listen, record, calculate. Wait for the right moment. Across the galactic networks, Veilthrix's performance continued. His voice rolled through a broadcast, dramatizing Earth's ineptitude, describing the planet as a sleeping child of the cosmos, attempting to play with stars it cannot even name. Every phrase was intended to wound, to provoke. And every phrase Elias catalogued. Hours turned into days. Analysts slept in chairs, the hum of cooling fans blending with the distant echo of alien performance. Kade moved among them, not as a commander, but as a teacher, a guardian of patience. "Do not forget," he said, leaning over a console displaying an array of energy flux patterns, "they assume supremacy. That's their mistake. No one suspects the quiet mind." The laughter returned, sharper, more theatrical than before, as if the aliens sensed impatience. Elias didn't flinch. He tapped a sequence, isolating the patterns of resonance in the signal. There was symmetry in it, a rigidity they depended upon. Fragile symmetry, if interpreted correctly. "They're brilliant," whispered Cone, her eyes wide, scanning the interface. "But, it's like watching someone balance on glass. One misstep." Elias nodded once. "Exactly. One misstep. And we'll know." By the end of the week, the broadcasts had become routine, expected, and predictable. Galactic audiences watched, laughed, and turned their attention elsewhere. Humanity's response remained silence, but in that silence, work continued. Probes were recalibrated, energy patterns analyzed, and vulnerabilities mapped. Outside, the alien satellites spun in perfect precision, unaware that every joke, every insult, every theatrical pause, was teaching humanity how to observe them, how to wait. Elias Kade finally turned from the holographic display and faced the room. "Remember," he said softly, almost as if speaking to the planet itself, "they will forget us, in time. But we will not forget them. Not a single detail." The room exhaled collectively, the tension easing slightly. Not relief, not satisfaction, only quiet resolve. High above, Veilthrix's laughter rolled across 12 star systems once more. And this time, humanity listened differently. Years passed, but the broadcasts never changed. Every cycle, Veilthrix's voice rolled across the void with the same polished arrogance, the same theatrical cadence. Humanity endured. They endured not out of fear, but with purpose. In the United Earth Defense Network, Dr. Elias Kade watched, listened, and calculated, while the world above carried on unaware of the careful war unfolding in silence. "Another loop," Lieutenant Maricone muttered, her tone more neutral than disbelief. "Do they ever run out of insults?" Elias did not answer immediately. He traced the signal patterns across three-dimensional projections, following fluctuations invisible to ordinary observers. "They never tire of the performance," he said finally. "But performance has rules. And rules have weaknesses." Around them, analysts moved with quiet efficiency. No one dared laugh or comment publicly, there was nothing human about the space they occupied. Yet inside, the human mind was alive, probing, testing. Stealth probes, tiny vessels no larger than a shuttle, had been dispatched years ago, not to challenge the Concordat fleet directly, but to observe, to map, to record every oscillation, every energy ripple in alien systems. Cone leaned over a console, pointing to a series of energy readings. "These patterns, it's like they're synchronized. All of it. Every station, every satellite, every communication hub." Elias nodded. "Exactly. They depend on synchronization. It's their strength, and also their vulnerability. Their entire network is a chain of perfectly timed resonance. Disturb one node carefully, and the rest falters." He paused, eyes narrowing at the flickering holograms. It's not brute force. That's the key. A small, precise input, one we can control, could cascade through their system. Imagine a ripple in a lake. Starts small, but it reaches the edges in ways they cannot anticipate. Cohn's brow furrowed. You're suggesting we could disable them without a fleet? Without even being seen? Precisely. Elias tapped the console. They never suspected subtlety. Veilthrix believes spectacle is proof of dominance. But spectacle cannot defend against observation. Patience and calculation are invisible. For months, human teams refined the probe's capabilities. They learned the language of alien energy fields, the rhythm of their fleets, and the signatures of each station's power cycle. Every mockery from the broadcast became a dataset. Every theatrical pause, a timing cue. And always, Kade reminded his team. Do not anticipate confrontation. Anticipate opportunity. It was not idle philosophy. Early one morning, the first test began. A single probe, cloaked and silent, approached a minor Concordat communication satellite. The mission was non-invasive, merely to transmit a carefully crafted pulse designed to mimic a natural fluctuation in the alien network. The results were subtle at first. One satellite blinked off for a fraction of a second. Human analysts held their breath. No explosions, no alarms, just a momentary interruption, easily dismissed if not observed. But Kade's eyes gleamed. They noticed it, he whispered, not to the room, but to the data itself. And yet, they cannot locate it. That's the advantage. Weeks later, Concordat broadcasts changed slightly, an almost imperceptible tension crept into Veilthrix's performances. He still laughed, still mocked, but his words carried hints of caution, of irritation, masked under theatrical arrogance. Analysts noticed immediately. Cohn leaned closer. Do you think they realized something? Elias's lips curved faintly. No. They think it's coincidence. That's enough. Months stretched into years. Humanity perfected their technique, probes became mobile, autonomous, capable of transmitting carefully calculated pulses across multiple points simultaneously. Each pulse was designed to disturb one resonance, then another, creating small disruptions across the network. It was slow work, almost invisible to the galaxy, but devastating in its subtlety. Concordat engineers grew frantic behind the scenes, attempting to trace anomalies that had no apparent origin. Veilthrix, meanwhile, performed as usual, never noticing that his carefully choreographed stage was beginning to falter. In the chamber, Kade watched as the indicators displayed minor malfunctions in alien energy fields. A satellite blinked offline. A station paused its communication briefly. No alarms had sounded on Concordat channels. No one outside the room understood what was happening. Maricone exhaled sharply. They're so predictable. They think spectacle hides all. But it doesn't. Elias did not reply immediately. He leaned over the projections, tracing the chain reaction of tiny disturbances. It isn't just predictability. It's overconfidence. They assume visibility equals control. They never anticipate patience, persistence, or silence. He tapped a sequence, isolating a particularly sensitive node. We'll escalate, carefully. A small cascade here, a minor pulse there, enough to unsettle, but not enough to reveal ourselves. They will respond, and in their response, they'll reveal more. A junior analyst raised a hesitant hand. Dr. Kade, what happens if they find us? He met her gaze steadily. Then we adapt. But they will not find us, because we do not play their game. We observe from outside it. Their arrogance blinds them. Days later, the Concordat fleet attempted an orbital display above one of their colonies, a demonstration meant to remind the galaxy of their power. But small disruptions rippled through the formation. One substation dropped offline briefly, another satellite faltered. Observers reported minor anomalies, quickly dismissed as technical glitches. Veilthrix's broadcast continued as usual, though hints of frustration leaked through his carefully constructed performance. His voice rose, laughter faltered, and the pauses between sentences lengthened. In the UEDN chamber, Kade allowed himself a rare smile. "They are human now," he said softly. "Human in the way we understand. Vulnerable to patience, to observation, to knowledge. They will still perform, but they are cracking." Cone shook her head, half in disbelief, half in awe. "We're doing this, without firing a single weapon?" "Exactly," Elias replied. "We're not fighting with firepower. We're fighting with understanding. Every insult, every mockery, every broadcast, record it, analyze it, exploit it. That is our battlefield." By the end of the year, the Concordat's broadcasts carried an edge of uncertainty. Veilthrix still spoke with confidence, but human analysts noted repeated miscalculations in timing, minor hesitations in syntax, and unusual fluctuations in energy usage during performances. Elias turned away from the projections, eyes on the faint light of Earth rising beyond the chamber windows. The planet was quiet, unaware of the invisible chessboard expanding across the void. "They think they dominate," he said. "But domination is fragile. And fragility is ours to exploit." The silence of humanity had changed. It was no longer mere patience, it was active, deliberate, and lethal in its subtlety. And above all, it was unnoticed. For the first time in decades, Veilthrix's laughter felt human. Not joyful, not triumphant, but nervous. And that nervousness, Elias knew, would grow. The Concordat did not believe silence could threaten them. Veilthrix's voice, once sharp and gleeful, now carried hints of tension he masked with his usual theatrical flourish. Across the galaxy, fleets and colonies moved with precision, unaware that subtle cracks had already begun to fracture the foundation of their dominance. Dr. Elias Kade stood in the observation chamber, the light of Earth casting long reflections across his face. He did not speak at first, only watched the projections. The signals, once smooth, unbroken, confident, now jittered with irregularities too precise to be coincidence. Tiny energy disruptions had rippled from the human-deployed probes, invisible to the casual observer but devastating when traced with patience. Lieutenant Maricone approached, her expression tense. "It's accelerating," she said. "The malfunctions, they're multiplying. Even their internal communications show stress." "I've never seen anything like this." Elias nodded slowly. "That's exactly what we wanted. Every node, every substation, every satellite, fragile when overstressed. One calculated pulse can cascade through their network. We just need the right moment." He tapped a holographic display, highlighting a series of energy readings converging toward a single, critical station. "This is it. Their central communications hub. Everything depends on it. Take it offline carefully, and the rest will falter without them even knowing why." Cone's eyes widened. "We're talking about their entire fleet, their colonies, going dark?" "Not destruction," Elias said. "Disruption. Confusion. Silence. They will panic, but they cannot locate the source. That's the point." The first signal was sent through a relay, a simple modulation within natural resonance parameters. There was no flash, no explosion, just an imperceptible pulse that traveled like a whisper. Analysts in the chamber leaned forward, watching indicators flicker, monitoring every minuscule response. "Node 1 responding," Cone whispered. It's off for a fraction of a second." Elias's lips curled in the faintest smile. "Good." And unnoticed. The pulse traveled further, hitting secondary nodes, and small anomalies multiplied. Fleet coordination faltered. Satellites blinked out briefly. Stations hesitated in their broadcasts. Each glitch was fleeting, easily explained to the casual observer as a technical hiccup, but carefully sequenced, they created systemic instability. Hours passed. Veilthrix continued to broadcast, unaware that his stage was crumbling. His voice carried a slightly higher pitch, the cadence a fraction faster. "Observe, citizens of the quadrant," he said theatrically. "Earth attempts communication, as usual. Charming in its persistence. Elias studied the frequency fluctuations carefully. He thinks it's the humans trying to respond. He does not realize it is the network itself faltering. Cohn looked incredulous. They're like a machine running on overconfidence. And we're just nudging it. Exactly, Elias replied. We do not push. We guide. Subtlety wins where force fails. The disruptions began to propagate more widely. Fleets attempting synchronized jumps experienced timing errors. A carrier lost contact with its escort ships. A communication relay over a key colony failed, creating hours of isolation. The galaxy observed minor anomalies, but the source remained invisible. In the observation chamber, the tension was almost palpable. Analysts did not cheer. There was no triumph, only the precise satisfaction of work executed flawlessly. Elias leaned over a console, adjusting a sequence to extend the disruptions just long enough to ripple through the remaining nodes. Node 8, Sequence Alpha, he said quietly. Proceed. Across the galaxy, Veilthrix's performance faltered. A pause stretched unnaturally long. His theatrical laughter hitched, and even seasoned human translators noticed the subtle tremor in his voice. He tried to regain control, issuing orders, correcting stations, but the system no longer obeyed instantly. Cohn leaned close to Elias. He's panicking. Can you see it? Elias nodded. Yes. But notice, he still tries to maintain composure. That's human enough for him to fail spectacularly. Fear hidden behind arrogance is always the most dangerous vulnerability. A cascade of minor failures unfolded simultaneously. Concordat vessels drifted without alignment. Power grids faltered. Communication satellites blinked off. The network itself became a labyrinth of uncertainty. Veilthrix barked orders, commanding emergency backups, trying to stabilize the chain, but the human-controlled pulses had disrupted synchronization beyond easy repair. Is it over? Cohn asked, voice low, almost hesitant. Elias shook his head. Not yet. Observation must continue until certainty. One misstep, and they recover. But watch. The final relay was activated. A sequence of micropulses hit the last critical node. The station systems paused. Signals failed. Broadcasts sputtered, and Veilthrix's voice fractured mid-sentence. Across 12 star systems, the Concordat fell into silence. Not dramatic, not catastrophic. Just stillness. The chamber remained quiet as analysts monitored the results. No alarms. No explosions. The only sound was the soft hum of Earth's orbital arrays. Cohn exhaled slowly. They're gone. All of them. Silence. Elias remained calm. Yes. Silence. That is the most human response of all. Observe. Understand. Then, when the time comes, act with precision. That is our advantage. For weeks, the galaxy noticed the absence. Communication channels that once carried Veilthrix's laughter were empty. Fleets drifted uncertainly. Colonies waited for orders that never arrived. Observers speculated, analyzed, but no one could locate the cause. Humanity had not fired a shot. Had not even visibly intervened. Elias turned to Cohn, his voice low. Record this moment. Not for celebration, but as reference. The universe will remember silence long after laughter fades. Mara nodded. And Veilthrix? He will adapt, Elias said. But it will take him longer than we waited. And by the time he understands, it will be too late to regain the upper hand. Months later, the galactic records quietly updated. Earth, once classified as a developing species, now held a new designation, strategic unknown. Scholars and observers debated its meaning, but none could penetrate the logic behind the sudden shift. Humanity remained silent, its influence invisible, its patience a weapon. Elias walked to the chamber's window and looked at Earth. The planet rotated peacefully, oblivious to the intricate chess game played above it. He allowed himself a brief smile, not of triumph, but of quiet acknowledgement. "They laughed at us for decades," he said softly. "And yet, here we are." Silence is louder than any broadcast. Patience stronger than arrogance. Cone joined him, her hand resting lightly on the console. "Do we tell anyone what we've done?" Elias shook his head. "No. Let them assume randomness. Let the universe wonder. That is the final victory. Not fear, not spectacle, but understanding. And understanding is invisible until it chooses to act." Outside, the stars continued their silent watch. The Concordat fleets drifted uncertainly, and Veilthrix's broadcasts remained absent. The galaxy had learned a new truth, though few noticed: underestimation could be lethal, and humanity, patient and observant, had turned mockery into mastery. And above all, Elias knew, the universe would hear only one thing: silence. The galaxy had fallen still, but for humanity, stillness was not peace, it was responsibility. Dr. Elias Kade stood in the observation chamber, hands clasped behind his back, watching a three-dimensional projection of Concordat systems. Every line, every satellite, every energy node hummed faintly on the display, a web of uncertainty that was now in human hands. Lieutenant Maricone approached, her eyes scanning the cascading anomalies that had long since become routine. "It's been weeks," she said softly. "And yet, nothing moves. They haven't restored communications. Not even a minor broadcast." Elias nodded. "Patience is not a pause. It is preparation. Their systems are fractured, their fleets disoriented. They will recover, but on our terms." The room fell silent, save for the soft hum of cooling fans and the distant buzz of orbital arrays. Humanity had achieved something the galaxy had never predicted: power without spectacle. The Concordat, the architects of mockery, had no idea that their empire now teetered on uncertainty, guided by the subtlety of human calculation. A new transmission flickered onto the interface. It was not a broadcast. It was a trace, a faint signal emitted from one of the Concordat's own recon satellites. Elias leaned in, reading the data carefully. "They're probing," he said. "They know something is wrong, but they don't know what." Cone frowned. "Do we respond?" "No," Elias replied firmly. "Silence is our shield. Every reply would reveal knowledge, reveal strategy. We only act when the advantage is absolute." Across the room, junior analysts worked in near-perfect synchronization, feeding data streams into predictive models. Every probe, every minor fluctuation, was analyzed, and the results fed back into sequences designed to subtly disrupt without exposing origin. The human network functioned like a single organism, calculated, precise, and unseen. Elias moved toward the central console. "Send the next wave," he instructed. A series of micropulses across the secondary nodes. "Time them carefully. Let the system stumble, not crash. Let it question itself." The room watched in tense anticipation. Unlike the previous disruptions, these were coordinated across multiple clusters. Minor errors multiplied, satellites blinked out for seconds, communications stalled, fleet maneuvers hesitated. To the galaxy, it appeared as random technical failures, but the patterns were deliberate, invisible strings of influence. Cone's voice broke the silence. "They're panicking. Internal chatter is escalating. We can see confusion across 3 command tiers." Elias allowed a rare smile. "Exactly. And they don't know why. Their arrogance never allowed them to consider patience or observation as a weapon. They cannot comprehend what they cannot see." Weeks turned into months. The Concordat scrambled to restore order. Veilthrix's once glorious broadcasts returned, but unevenly, marred by minor glitches, hesitation, and faltering tone. Analysts noted changes in speech cadence, stress markers in energy output, and irregular synchronization across fleets. Every misstep, every pause, revealed vulnerabilities humanity had catalogued months ago. A young technician leaned toward Kade, her voice trembling. "Sir, this is unprecedented. They've lost cohesion, morale, and yet, we haven't fired a single shot. Not one." Elias's gaze remained on the projections. Weapons are visible. Force is measurable. Understanding is invisible. It moves silently, like a tide beneath ice. By the time they realize it, it will be too late to recover. Suddenly, an alert flared. One of the primary Concordat communication hubs was offline longer than expected. Analysts held their breath. A cascade of errors followed, subtle but widespread. Command structures hesitated, fleets misaligned. "Node 5, Elias murmured. "Increase the pulse amplitude slightly." Subtlety, but persistent. "Don't force it, guide it." As the sequence executed, the Concordat network struggled to compensate. Stations reallocated power, fleets paused mid-maneuver, and Vailthrix's voice stumbled mid-broadcast. The audience across the galaxy noticed irregularities, but none could trace them. Every outward broadcast suggested competence, every internal signal revealed chaos. Cone studied the projections, awe in her eyes. "They think it's a technical failure. They can't see us." "Not yet." Elias nodded. "Correct. And that's how we remain invisible. Our advantage is that we understand systems they cannot imagine, and act through patience, not aggression." The weeks that followed were not marked by loud battles or explosive confrontation. They were defined by restraint, observation, and deliberate pressure. The Concordat continued their broadcasts, but each attempt carried uncertainty. Their once pristine network wavered unpredictably, fleet coordination faltered, and colonies reported minor blackouts. The galaxy, accustomed to Concordat dominance, began to notice anomalies, but attribution was impossible. Elias turned to Cone, voice low. "It's time to extend the sequence. Expand coverage to tertiary nodes. Let them experience the consequences of subtle misalignment. Their systems will strain, and their arrogance will ensure they never anticipate our hand." Cone's eyes widened. This could ripple through their entire grid. Fleets, colonies, everything. "Exactly," Elias said. "We do not break them. We guide them into self-uncertainty. The moment they seek to dominate, they will collapse under their own rigidity." Another alert flashed. A Concordat fleet attempting synchronized maneuvers reported conflicting signals. Satellites misaligned. Internal communications faltered. Vailthrix barked orders, attempting to regain control, but the system itself no longer obeyed predictably. Elias allowed himself a measured breath. "They are learning," he said softly. "Not about us, but about themselves. Their failure is a mirror of arrogance." Hours later, analysts confirmed the pattern. Critical nodes had stabilized just long enough to avoid catastrophic collapse, but confidence in Concordat operations had shattered. Fleet efficiency dropped, communication reliability plummeted, and command hierarchies questioned decisions. All without a single visible act of aggression from Earth. Cone glanced at Elias. "Do you think they understand the scale? That we've orchestrated this without being seen?" He shook his head. "Not yet. They will attribute it to error, to chance, to coincidence. That is the beauty. Invisible advantage lasts longer than brute strength, because it cannot be fought directly." Elias turned toward the window, gazing at the serene blue of Earth. "Remember this, Mira. Humanity does not need to shout to be heard. We act through patience, intelligence, and observation. The galaxy may mock us, underestimate us, but the quiet mind holds more power than the loudest weapon." Cone studied him, absorbing the weight of the lesson. "And Vailthrix? When he realizes?" "By then," Elias said quietly, "it will be too late. He will see the consequences, but not the hand behind them. That is the final lesson. Mastery is invisible until it chooses to act." Outside, the stars continued their silent orbit. Concordat fleets drifted uncertainly. Broadcasts were hesitant, marred by glitches, and their empire had begun to fracture in small, invisible ways. Humanity, patient and deliberate, had achieved what no weapon could: control without visibility, influence without spectacle. And above all, in the quiet of the observation chamber, Dr. Elias Kade allowed himself the faintest smile. Humanity had waited. And now, the galaxy would listen, quietly, respectfully, finally. Silence had weight. And humanity had mastered it.